Okay, so this is another question and answer, trying to get as many questions answered as we can. I don't know, there's a lot of questions sent in. All right, so I'm not sure who this one is from, but the question is the submitter gets or he thinks he gets the concept of using heavy for caliber bullets like ELDM or burgers or other similar construction for hunting. What he doesn't understand is why a 108 grain 6mm bullet is good, but 120 grain 6.5 isn't. So in other words, it's why is, even though there's two separate calibers, so one 6mm, one is 6.5, why is the 6mm 100-something grain bullet good, but 100-something grain bullet in a 6.5 wouldn't be? And that's not exactly how it is, but I'm going to explain the concept. So let's take an ELDM, but instead let's make it vastly different, okay? So let's do a 75 grain 22 cal ELDM and a 147 grain 6.5. But we're also going to add one. So the way these bullets work, just like hold a pencil in your hand and then imagine as that pencil is being pushed through the target, the front of the pencil is shearing off and fragmenting off, okay? The longer the pencil is, the more bullet there is to fragment, and the deeper the projectile is going to go, all things being equal. If we now take that pencil and we, instead of being 5 inches long or 6 inches long, we cut it down to it's a 1/2 inch long, and you push it through at the same velocity, you have less pencil to fragment, which means you're not going to get as much penetration depth. That's the heavy for caliber part. So a 75 grain ELDM from at 2,800 feet per second impact from a 224 cal will penetrate 14, 15 inches and create a 2 to 3 inch wide wound. It's absolutely fantastic for almost anything in North America. But if we make a 6.5 millimeter bullet that weighs 75 grains and it has the same construction, it's an ELDM, you're going to get 2 to 3 inches of penetration that's 5 to 6 inches wide, because you have less pencil to tear off from the front of the bullet. So his question was, why is 108 grain 6mm good, but 120 grain from a 6.5 PRC not good? It's not that it's not good. It's that when you increase the width of the bullet, you need to get the same performance, that is, on a fragmenting bullet, the same penetration depth, the same width, you need to increase the length of that bullet. So when you go for like a 0.5 BC bullet in 22 cal is a lot longer per caliber, divided by caliber or whatever, in comparison to width, than a 0.5 BC 338 bullet. A 0.5 G1 BC 338 bullet is this stubby little thing, right? That's kind of how it is. So anytime we talk heavy for caliber, it's heavy for caliber because we're talking about enough of the bullet on the front to fragment and tear off, like the pencil being pushed through and losing from the front. And if you use that same weight, but you go up in caliber, the weight is being used in the width. So you get even less bullet that can fragment from the front to cause tissue damage and penetrate. And it's mainly penetration depth. So the reason a 108 grain ELDM and 103 grain ELDX from a 6 Creedmoor can reliably take, elk or deer at 500 yards is because it has enough length to the bullet that when it fragments, you get sufficient penetration still. You do a 100 grain bullet in a 6.5 designed the same, you're going to get a lot less penetration because some of the weight of that bullet is taken up in the width. It doesn't have as much bullet it can tear off from the front to penetrate. So hope it answers that question. Second question, this is Brent. Positives and negatives of BDL versus detachable Bach magazines in hunting rifles. And he says he likes BDLs because he can jack a cartridge in the chamber, and if he doesn't shoot it, he can cover the ejection port, open the bolt, and shove the cartridge back down to the BDL magazine. Yep. And then he says DBMs take 3 hands to pop the detachable mag off, open the bolt, try not to drop the mag or rifle the cartridge, close the bolt, blah, blah. Okay. And then he also likes the BDL is more sleek versus the detachable bag that hangs down and snags on backpacks. Okay, so first 2 things. One, MDT makes flush fit mags for AIs. that are for almost every cartridge out there now. So if your gun has an AI mag, you can have a flush fit 3 or 5 round mag from MDT. So the sleek versus not sleek isn't a thing anymore. Okay, so the functional thing of a BDL is there's quite a few things. So first, the most common malfunction of a rifle is in the feed system. So that is magazine or internal box magazine. When a magazine or internal box, and yes, ADLs and BDLs mess up all the time when you actually shoot them. Part of this is hunters don't shoot very much and they don't load the magazine and rapidly fire the rounds out of the magazine and then reload and keep doing this as if they're practicing until they get on an animal. Then their gun malfunctions and they claim it's never happened before. Well, it never happened before because you never actually tried to use it correctly. But BDLs, ADLs, DBMs, like the biggest cause of malfunctions is the magazine, and the quickest way to clear that malfunction is to swap magazines, right? So different context, but every gun that matters for like, I need this thing to work right now uses a detachable box magazine, and it is not solely because it holds more ammo and you can reload it quicker. It's because magazines are the largest source of error in a properly functioning gun to cause a malfunction. So you swap mags, you fix the malfunction. That's also good when you get into like water, snow, ice, where you get right into those temps and things where things start freezing up. When you have a BDL, ADL, it's very hard to clear that. It's much harder to clear that than to drop a mag, insert a new mag. Okay. All things being equal in large sample size with lots of rounds, good detachable box magazines are more reliable than an ADL, BDL. The way that follower and floor plate has to work in a BDL and ADL, they're more susceptible to issues long-term, large sample sizes. As far as loading and unloading, I don't know. This is really, I don't know that you need 3 hands. Like if I want to unload, I chamber the gun, it's got a DBM, and I don't want to shoot. I safe it, I remove the magazine. Unsafe the gun, jack the round out. Close the bolt, safe the gun, so now it's an empty chamber. Take the round that was there, put it back in the magazine, put it in the gun. I can't say that that's hard, and it certainly isn't. Very often dudes will start trying to load on a BDL, ADL, and they misfeed, right? They put the round on the wrong side when they go to push it down. The gun gets a little janky when they're trying to load the rounds. Then they got to use 2 hands to get in there and fish the round, push it forward, push it back, get it to click in right. So I don't think there's anything really being saved there. So the biggest thing with a detachable magazine over an internal mag, ADL or BDL, they're more reliable. They do offer quicker reloads. And when you go to shoot and you're practicing like you should be, loading 5 at a time, every time you load that round under stress, like any kind of stress, I'm going to load a round, reload the gun, load around, load around, load around under stress. That is a potential source of error. You can mess that one up. When I'm carrying a spare magazine that is a detachable box magazine and I shoot an animal and I want to top the gun off, I just swap mags. There's no under stress or under speed or field conditions. There's no messing with the cartridges in the magazine. You just swap mags and you're done. So that goes into, if you carry a rifle with a DBM, you should always have a spare magazine. That's a part of the gun system. You don't have a rifle that takes a detachable magazine, you have 1 mag. That's not how that works. You buy a Tikka, it comes with a mag, immediately go buy 2 or 3 more spare mags. That's how it works. So yeah, the functional benefit, more reliable, less to mess with under stress or in the field, reload faster if you're practicing like you should be, so you're shooting high volume ammo, you get more rounds quicker and you're not loading it constantly. Okay, so this one is from Tim, and he's asking his buddy's friend's dad's grandson. Holy crap. So you did, right? Okay. Buddy's friend's dad's grandson is going to hunt elk this year. They got him a compact 223. Is this enough gun? And then in parentheses, I heard your 223 podcast, so I'm guessing yes. And he's asking, what are the right bullets, factory ammunition that might recommend? Okay, so yes, there's several podcasts here that discuss terminal ballistics to explain why. There's also 2 podcasts on the XO podcast that I talked with Steve and Mark about terminal ballistics. They had some really good insight, really good questions. I'd recommend that if you want to know. A 243 is absolutely phenomenal at killing elk. There's no issue there. So it depends. Now, what bullets, factory ammunition, etc., depends on the twist rate of the bullet or the barrel. 243s historically are 1 in 9 or 1 in 10 twist. Tikka and some other companies are now making 1 to 8s. The 1 to 8 twist or faster can use really good bullets. So high BC 108 ELDMs, 103 ELDXs, etc. If they're not going to shoot beyond 450 yards, like legitimately, right? And don't, just because I'm saying I'm willing to shoot 600, I don't put my child or anyone else's child in the position where I'm forcing them to shoot 600. It's a surefire way to failure and disaster. But let's say, it's a youth or whatever. I've got a 243 for general hunting and that 450 or so and under. It can go a little further. Man, the 95 grain Nosler ballistic tip or the 95 grain Winchester ballistic silver tip, it's the same bullet, is like, from a terminal perspective, is probably the most optimum 6mm conventional hunting bullet. That would be number one. And you can get that in Winchester ballistic silver tip, 95 grain factory ammo. That's where I'd start and stop. That's great. That's good. So that 95 grain Nosler ballistic tip would be number one. 90 grain ELDX would be fine from Hornady. 95 grain Hornady SST would be fine. 95 grain or 100 grain Nosler partition. I would not go, the common thing is hard bullet, tough bullet, deep penetration for smaller guns. So that's like a Barnes or really deep penetrating bullet, high weight retention. That takes a gun that is marginal, quote unquote, and then you put a bullet in it that makes a very narrow, deep wound, like an arrow. And then it causes the marginal label to smaller calibers and cartridges because you're using the wrong thing. You need X amount of penetration, and every bullet I just gave will penetrate deep enough to kill an elk consistently. Put the bullet in the front half, you're good. And then from that point, you want it as wide as possible. And those bullets I just gave are good bullets and will do that. So yes, 243 is just fine as long as you can shoot. All guns you have to be able to shoot. And 95 grain Nosler ballistic tip or 95 grain Winchester ballistic silver tip would be the two that I would go from there. All right. So this one, I don't know who did this, but this is he's asking about the tubb nose ring and saying he left 2 speak pipes about it. And are we dodging the question or just don't like the idea? No, we've talked about it a bunch on the Terminal Ballistics podcast. So the tubb nose ring is a tool. Imagine you have a Full Metal Jacket or like a match bullet, like a Sierra Match King, a Burger hybrid target or a Burger VLD or whatever. And imagine you went a tenth or a quarter of an inch from the tip of the bullet and you cut a ring. So you created a weak spot on the tip of the bullet. The idea, right, the hypothesis of it is that when it hits, that nose breaks off, so that little front part breaks off and exposes the lead core. Now it's like a big open tip lead core bullet, and it'll fragment and expand and work really well. That's not what happens, or it's definitely not what happens with thick jacketed match bullets and the nose ring consistently. If you think about what has to happen with that nose being cut around the circumference of the bullet, pushing it back like point forward doesn't work. It needs lateral pressure to snap it off. So what ends up happening is bullets will, if you take a bullet and you go to the very center of the bullet, the middle of the bullet in length, and you put a line, the center of gravity is rearward. It's to the rear of the bullet. Well, in a medium, denser than air, the heavy part of the bullet, the center of gravity, wants to go forward. It wants to tumble, yaw is what it is. It's yawing. When it starts to yaw with a nose ring and it puts any kind of lateral pressure on the tip of that bullet, that nose ring breaks off. And typically, if it has sufficient velocity, we are seeing about 2,300, 2,400 feet per second impact. The nose ring breaks off and the bullet fragments pretty hard. So that's good. So then it works like a burger and all that. Below, somewhere in that 2,000, 2,200 feet per second range, sometimes that bullet, like the 115 grain DTAC in 6mm, but any of the thick jacketed closed nose design, open tip match bullets, right? Sierra Match Kings, etc. When the bullet tumbles, the tip will break off, sometimes a little bit of fragment from the front, but oftentimes it just tumbles through the animal. So it's going sideways through the animal. That's not bad if it does it consistently. A sideways bullet creates a very large wound. So if you see the pictures from Ryan's or I think I'm at like 30 into elk at this point. I think Ryan's probably 5 to 10. The wounds from 115 grain detax and 6mm can be horrific. I mean, way too much, more than most people want. That's caused from that bullet yawing and going sideways and creating a huge frontal diameter that's tearing and destroying tissue. You can take, Tubb sells a nose ring tool. So you take the nose ring, you actually license it, so you can't sell them. You license the nose ring tool to do the nose ring on different bullets and different calibers. It works, and it'll turn some bullets that you should not be shooting into animals because they don't upset into they will reliably fragment and or tumble. But in general, you do get more consistent results with a bullet that's tipped. If you took the 115 DTAC and you put a plastic tip on the front, it would more consistently perform than it does now. It's very destructive in what it does now, but sometimes the bullet will expand from the front and end up in a bald mushroom that looks like a Nosler long-range Accubon or any good bullet that you like in a magazine. Sometimes it fragments heavily and it looks like a burger if you can even find pieces of it. Sometimes it yaws, but it doesn't break apart and it exits sideways, and you can literally see there's this enlarged sideways profile of a bullet exiting the animal. They all kill well. However, it is a little inconsistent in how it performs. And that's going to be, I don't know, maybe not if you go to a thin jacketed bullet like a Burger hybrid. You might not, when you nose ring that, it's probably just going to be even more violent, or from what little bit I've seen it is. But a Burger VLD does not need a nose ring to work correctly. It's really for closed tip match bullets that have thick jackets that will not upset. Without it, you nose ring them, they become viable big game bullets. You nose ring like they sell a 299 grain DTAC and 338. If that bullet yaws, or when it does, it massive wounds that nobody wants to see in an animal. So, yeah, there's nothing magical about the nose ring. All right, so this one is from Samuel. He's a late onset hunter. He's asking some questions. He's currently planning on hunting whitetail and black bear in North Carolina mountains this year to start out, and possibly surrounding states if he's out of North Carolina tag. So first question. He's wanting to begin hunting in the West in 2025 and would love to hear what states, animals you guys would recommend for the beginner to learn on. He'd prefer ODC, guaranteed ability to draw. Okay, so you want, hey, where do I need to hunt? No, we're not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that. The thing is people want to go, I understand the desire to have an adventure or to experience things, but I will caution, if you are a new hunter, killing is a skill. Killing on demand is a skill like everything else you do in life. I'm not saying that somebody that's new shouldn't come out west, but you're adding complexity when you're not even good at the killing part. My suggestion to everybody I know is if you have whitetails, focus on whitetails and kill 5, 10, 20, 50 a year for a couple of years. Like, focus on being able to kill them on demand in different conditions. If you're shooting a whitetail and every deer is in a green field or in his head in a bucket, and you kill 20 of them, that's not 20 whitetails that you've killed. You've killed one deer 20 times. You're just repeating the same scenario and you don't learn from it. Use them to learn how to kill. And I don't mean to be flippant and just kill everything. I mean that you're going to mess up animals. You're going to mess up shots. It makes more sense to do that on animals and in areas where you can, if you make a bad shot, you can come back the next day, whatever the case may be, and you're not traveling across the country to do it. So my first suggestion, would be Ryan's as well, get competent at killing animals where you're at first. Whitetails are great. Bears are great if you got them. Whitetails are just the best because they have a lot of tags. So that's a good thing. When you come west, man, the regulations are out there. Look at the regs. I would still suggest for people, like, whitetails are a really good thing to come out for the first time west if you can find them, because they're in different terrain, than whitetails in the East a lot of times, and they act a little bit different. They're the same animal, but they act a little different, or I should say the terrain causes them to act different. And it's a way that you can get generally more animals, more opportunities in that environment to learn how to work that environment. So you're not trying to learn how to hunt a new animal and learn how to function in that environment. You're just adding one at a time. After that, whatever you want to shoot, man, whatever you can draw a tag for. And then his second question is, you got a Tikka and 6.5 Creedmoor, practicing at the range. He wants to get it chopped and threaded for a suppressor. So he doesn't have anybody local that's trustworthy to do it. So he's talking about maybe grabbing an Ace prefit from Unknown, and what barrel profile you'd recommend, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so first off, there are gunsmiths everywhere that can chop and thread a barrel. That is not magical. Any decent gunsmith can do it. I'm trying to remember the name. You'll have to Google it. I don't remember the name. There's a company right now, they typically known for AR barrels, but it's something like $160. They'll even, like, you select it, pay $30, and they'll ship you a box and a shipping label to put your gun, like, stripped down in the box. It goes to them overnight or second day. They chop, thread it, put it back in a box, and send it to you. It's like a 1 week or 2 week turnaround. I can't remember who it is. It's there. You should be able to find it with a Google. That's a bare minimum. That's what I would do first off. Your factory barrel is absolutely fine, and more than absolutely fine. They're really good barrels. So for a chop and thread, no, I would not get a new barrel. That is way more effort than sending your current barrel and letting them chop and thread it and send it back to you. That's not a big deal to send barrels and actions to be worked on. And then he goes, would a thicker barrel be better for primary and training use, or to simply have an ultralight setup solely for the backpack hunts? There seems to be a ton of conflicting information regarding accuracy, heat dispersion, and possible weights. Okay, so there's a post in Rockslide, the top of I think it's the rifle forum. The rifle sub forum, you might have to search it. That's like, barrel heat or point of impact change with barrel heat, something like that. Cold barrel versus hot barrel. Here's the thing. The inside of the barrel does not know, from a functional perspective, whether it's a bull barrel or a thin barrel. Good barrels shoot, bad barrels don't. It doesn't matter how thick they are. It doesn't matter how thin they are. There are number one featherweight, zero weight barrels from good manufacturers that shoot great, right? So there's a whole functional aspect to shooting in larger shot group sizes that we've talked about a lot on podcasts that need to be maintained. And let's just say it's from 1 to 1.5 MOA for consistent 10-round groups, not 3, not 5. Go listen to the other podcast for that. That post that I was cold bore versus hot bore and point of impact shift, it shows group size as it's getting bigger. So when we look at 1 to 1.5 MOA for consistent 10-round groups, barrels, every contour from smallest safely possible to be fired to largest will do that. That's not a thing. So accuracy is not a thing. They're good. Weights, yeah, man, the lighter you go, the better the weight. Heat dispersion. So that's a funny thing that people do with thicker barrels. Oh, it disperses the heat. No, not really. I mean, it depends on how you view that. It's a thin barrel, the outside will heat up faster than the inside, but it's lighter weight, less material. It also cools off faster. A thick barrel, the inside will transfer some of that heat to the thicker metal from the inside of the bore to out, so it heats up more slowly, but it also cools a lot more slowly. So once it gets hot, it's staying hot for a lot longer. The biggest problem you have with any barrel when it gets hot is barrel mirage. So you shoot it, the barrel gets hot, you look through the scope, and it's like you're looking down a paved highway in the summer and you see the barrel, the road mirage, the water coming up. That makes the target appear where it's not. Then you run into like you're aiming different places. So the barrel doesn't care that it's hot. If you use a barrel shield, a mirage shield on a barrel, small barrels, you can shoot them till they melt and they'll hold I'm exaggerating, but functionally you can shoot them as much as you want until they, you burn the barrel out. So manufacturer barrel, just cut that thing, thread that thing, and shoot it. There's no real big deal in that. And then Philip is asking, how much do the rental guns sell for? How much have they been shot? If they are the Rockslide Special, Tikka T3X, Rockstock, Maven RS 1.2, Have they been set up per forms recommendations to mitigate issues? Degreased, aggressively free-floated, paint pen, blah, blah, blah. The short answer is you can't buy the rental guns anymore. That was never a me thing. It was, hey, it was fine, but it just ran into issues of trying to make sure guns worked and swapping stocks and all that. You can't buy the rental guns anymore. You can buy a gun that's exactly like the rental guns. That's fine. But to answer, if you rent a gun for one of the courses, this is the shoot to hunt course. From now on, that gun has been assembled by us with everything done correctly, function tested by us, and shot by us. Everything is set up as I would use that gun, and it will not change. So last year we had issues with different people and people buying guns, people buying a stock, but they didn't want stock, but they wanted a barrel and things switching. We had gun problems this third class of last year. That won't happen again. The guns now are all set up correctly and vetted by us before you use a rental gun, and you can't buy the rental guns anymore. So, all right. So I think that is it for this question and answer.